Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode two of the View from the Clipper podcast. We promised we'd make this a weekly occurrence, and so far we're
Started
we're
well.
sticking to our guns. We've
We're
started
2 and
well,
0.
Josh. 2-0, despite the Clippers' shaky start. We can get into that later on. Josh, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm feeling good within myself. The Clippers have, I wouldn't say wholly contributed to how excited I've felt about the return of basketball. I've recently started a sort of wider NBA podcast called Crossover the Pond, and I've hung my hat early on the Chicago Bulls, the young Chicago Bulls, as the team that I'm enjoying the most on League Pass so far. So it would be tough for me to say with a heavy heart that I say I've not particularly enjoyed watching the Clippers so far. We can get more into that, James. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm thinking back to last week. I think I was a little bit too high on the Clippers, maybe their season in general, but um, I think in particular that Jazz game, which we can touch on in a second, I thought would be an easy win. I thought they had a few games that they had a great opportunity to go 3-0 to start the season, and obviously that hasn't happened. I think you were a little less high on the Clippers, and I think you've had a look at like previous starts to the year, and I think if we put our Clippers hat on, really, the Clippers don't typically start seasons well, and I think we usually have this discussion around October time, around like the 10 game sort of Ty Lue sample size that he likes to make lots of changes. There've been big changes made in recent seasons, whether it was the Russell Westbrook coming out the starting lineup a couple of seasons ago, which obviously then led to like a big run for the team. So yeah, I don't think we can expect anything too soon. But yeah, let's talk about this Jazz game because, like I said, I was I think I even mentioned on the pod that it would be an easy win, but it certainly wasn't.
It was
129,
for someone.
108. It was for the Jazz. They played exceptionally well. I think a lot of people were looking at it from the viewpoint of the Clippers played badly, which I completely agreed. But I think the Jazz just got off to a hot start, and I've seen it many teams the Clippers have played where they get off to a hot start. They've got some young players who can make shots, and even guys like Walker Kessler were having sort of career games, particularly from shooting, even from the 3 point range, which I didn't expect, becoming a bit more of a stretch big in that game, and even guys like Sensen Bauer as well, who I think had a great performance at 20 points and was really nailing down the threes as well. The Clippers definitely started this game pretty poorly, and yeah, I just think that the Jazz had a bit too much in the end and ultimately ran away with it. What were your thoughts from opening night against the Jazz?
I think you using the term there, and I don't know if you intended it to be phrased like that, but ran away with it is exactly what they did. Like I always have this issue with the Clippers, and I think like I almost tried to talk myself out of my like negative view of that Jazz game when we did the first podcast because like you're trying to get excited for the season and you're trying to get like up for that first game and enjoy it. But there was something in my brain that was just saying like this is a Utah team like always have the bit between their teeth. I think Will Hardy is such a good coach, by the way. Like he like I think it's Jim Jackson who said it on like one of the past commentaries against the Jazz, but like Will Hardy like coaches his face off as he says because I don't think he can say ass on the broadcast. So like Will Hardy is like always just like over like getting this team to be more than the sum of its parts basically, and I think you saw that again in this game. Like it always feels like it is the Utah Jazz, but it might not be. It could be like any young team against the Clippers, really. It feels like they come out and have like career shooting nights every single time. And generally, like there's been times in the past where I've been able to like look at what the Clippers have done in that game and say, listen, like that's a rare shooting night for this team. The Clippers are pretty unlucky that they get like a rare shooting night from this team. And this kind of was one in a way. In the sense that like the Jazz, I think shot like 70% in the first half from the field. Yeah, 71.8% and 57.1% from three, which like you're so rarely going to see teams doing. But I was actually watching this one and being a little bit like it was almost, I know we make a lot of football analogies in this, James, but it was almost like me watching Liverpool and Brentford at the weekend where I was like, yeah, you knew they were going to start like this. So like, why have you not adapted and reacted better? And I just thought the Clippers were so at sea in this game. Like that defensively, the schemes were off. Like none of the guys looked like they came out with any real energy. The Jazz, on the other hand, as we've alluded to, came out with so much energy, and that's like what's what you should expect from a young team. So unless we're just gonna like sit back as Clippers fans and as the Clippers staff and the players and go like, oh, every time we play a young team, you can basically just chalk that up as like we're gonna have a bad first half. I'm gonna put ourselves on the back foot. Like I don't know if I'm okay with that really. Like I'd like to see the Clippers come out with more purpose. Like, listen, it may have been different if it was at Intuit Dome to start the season. I'm not going to make any excuses for the guys, but Utah is probably a trickier place to play, like playing in Salt Lake City
Yeah.
with that home crowd behind them for this young team. But it's not a good Utah team. Like it's not a Utah team that has like an awful lot of direction yet. Good coach, yes, but like that's not a team that is completely like wedded to team chemistry and like so together that the Clippers should be looking like they're so defensively out of sorts. Like they were completely picked off by Utah really, and you've mentioned the Walker Kessler threes raining down. Like I was getting like Jonas Valanciunas flashbacks of like centers who like you see play against like the other 29, what I guess 28 teams, and like don't hit a single three, and then suddenly they play the Clippers and just absolutely torch it. And like that first one that
Yeah.
Walker Kessler stepped into, I was like, oh God, it's happening again. Like we're getting the Jonas Valanciunas flashbacks. And by the way,
Valanciunas,
yeah,
yeah,
we've
Conley, all
probably
those
still
kind of
got
players. Yeah.
we've probably still got Valanciunas to come when we play Denver as well, which is a scary proposition. I was quite happy when I saw that he was maybe going to the EuroLeague, but that never materialized. So, yeah, like a brutal, brutal first night loss for the Clippers. Really, it's funny because you referenced on that show that you thought the pundits had been pretty high on the Clippers. Like I'd heard Bill Simmons and Zach Lowe sort of alluding to how high people were on the Clippers and being quite high on them themselves. And I listened to the Zach Lowe show after that Utah game, and it was almost like he kind of expected that to happen. He was just like the Clippers were like, bludgeoned by a young Jazz team, sort of just glossed over it as if like, yeah, kind of going to happen. So again, like I don't know if it's now the expectation. I'm interested in what you think, James. Like whether it's the expectation that because we're so old, like whenever we face a young team, especially on their home floor, like we're probably just going to get run out of the gym.
Yeah, I think it's early to say, but if I think back to like previous like really bad, like historically bad Clippers performances, like it is usually against teams that are a lot younger who you maybe don't anticipate it against. Like I think even that I don't know if you can think back to that Dallas game where they absolutely destroyed us in the first half, and it was like one of the biggest sort of margins. I can't remember exactly the score in the end, but obviously it was an embarrassing game for the
Yeah.
Clippers. That was an early tip, but I think that team was quite young at the time, and there's definitely been more examples, which I'm sure we could find dozens of them. But I think it's also just an easy point to make because the Clippers do have the oldest roster in the NBA. There's obviously more games that we can go into where we can really go into that point. But I think this was prevalent here, and it has been sort of a prevalent theme throughout some of the four games the Clippers have played so far that they do look slow. The players have even commenting that they are tired. I don't think anyone particularly maybe mentioned that in this game from what I can remember. But yeah, on the road, Salt Lake City, new additions in the team. I think it was probably begging for the Clippers to drop this game, and I think more of us should have seen it. And I think that probably just speaks more to the expectations around this team that we really want them to hit the ground running, take the regular season seriously. I think I made a point on the previous episode around like trying to secure a playoffs spot early because the age factor really plays into that, and having as much break before the postseason when NBA really starts is going to be really important. So like dropping these kind of games early isn't ideal. But I think we still need to get to the end of that like 10 game sample size. We've got some interesting teams coming up that are more on the younger side, I would say. So be interested to see how we get on against them. But yeah, I think to your points, like Will Hardy, I've been impressed with for many seasons, and I can definitely, if it doesn't work out in Utah, then I could see him getting maybe more of a big market team because I'm a big fan the way he's managed this Jazz team through like a different difficult transitional period. Ultimately, it's been a rebuilding team, but I think they've got off to a good start this season. And obviously, that started unfortunately against the Clippers. I think what I notice about him maybe more than other coaches is how much he loves to shout, and I think that's always like a positive part of that. And I think their defense looked fantastic. They've also got just an array of good young talent across the team now, and they're looking deep. Obviously, I think we spoke about Ace Bailey. He didn't have the night maybe he expected. I think he'd had some illness, so it was like sort of a 50-50 if he was going to play. But some of the others, like in particular, I think like we touched on Kesler, um, George, and even Laurie Markkinen, who's obviously a hot property in the NBA, had fantastic performances, and our defense just wasn't there at all. I think, fortunately enough, throughout the next games, and we'll touch on games against the Suns and the Blazers, and last night against the Warriors, the defense has improved dramatically. But I think a constant theme which started in this game is the amount of turnovers, and I think watching the game back, particularly in the first half, is just like the careless turnovers, and I don't think it's anything to a specific player. Like even new guys like Brook Lopez, who you think would have like a positive impact on the team straight away, were just throwing the ball away needlessly. Like I think there was like a side out where we turned the ball over twice, like basically in the exact same fashion. So it's more like the needless turnovers, I think, and that does come with, I think, maybe just not being fully prepared for the season, which is confusing because I thought the Clippers had a great preseason and there was a lot of talk around Ty Lue getting everyone ready, like getting Kawhi Leonard and James as ready as possible. I think there was comments around them like participating in every play during training camp. So I think we really felt going into it that this was a team that was ready to hit the ground running. But it's been evident from this game, definitely, I think maybe more than others, that they are just not ready at the moment and will need more games, unfortunately, which is not ideal because I know a lot of Clippers fans want to see the team hit the ground running. But I think, yeah, as we've mentioned, that is not something the Clippers like to do. They like to sort of feel the rhythm after maybe like 20 games and then go on like a silly run where we just beat everyone. So hopefully we've got that to come. I guess any like final thoughts on the Utah game or anything that stood out? Otherwise, we can touch on the Suns.
I was just going to double down on that point about the slower starts because me and you were sort of looking at it before we started the recording, and the last time the Clippers like had a hot start to a season was 2021, which kind of I guess checks out really, and that's the season they make it to the Western Conference Finals. It's a season where it feels like sort of everybody on the roster is at their peak really. Like you get like peak Paul George, you get peak Kawhi Leonard, you get Pat Beverly, playing his face off if to reference the Jim Jackson thing again. Like there's so many guys in that team, Reggie Jackson. You think back
Yeah,
to all these guys, it felt like they were sort of late 20s, early 30s, and like really ready to, hit the ground running that season. And it kind of tracks over the course of the season. The Clippers finished fourth in the West that season. The season after, they obviously suffer from ill health, but they're 1-4 to start that season. This is 2022, so 2023 now. They go 2-4 to start the season. 2024 they go 3-1 to start, so a little bit better in 2024. That's the season again they come fourth in the Western Conference. They get that sort of, I guess, shot as well partway through the season of the Robert Covington, and I'm trying to think who else was in that trade looking back now, but they get that partway through the season before, I believe it was. So they come into the season with quite a together roster really, compared to what it was like the season before. So maybe not quite as much of a surprise that they do start a little bit quicker that season. But then having gone 3-1, they then lose the next I think it's 6 straight after that. So again, like I guess you could argue age and a bit of a couple of other things catching up with them. Last season, 2025, most people will probably remember the Clippers start 2-5 and are really bad at Intuit Dome throughout that run as well before going on a 4-game run at Intuit Dome, which obviously I take credit for because I was there for all 4 of those games for that 4-0 streak. So yeah, the Clippers just like religiously, as you mentioned, James, slow starters really. I don't know whether to be worried by that. I don't know whether I should have expected more of that, whether I kind of did anticipate it in the back of my mind, but then didn't necessarily like want to be like a negative influence on, like I almost wanted to like manifest more
Yeah,
positivity, but like so many, and we'll touch on it more throughout this period of games, but like a lot of the old issues rearing their heads, which is the most worrying thing. Like God, I think if you tried to search for the most used word that me and you have said on this podcast, at least in a negative sense, it'd probably be turnovers. Like that word turnovers just like feels like it spins around in my nightmares, like the head of the girl from The
yeah.
Exorcist. It's just like it is honestly like I don't know how much more I can sit and like hear Ty Lue talk about turnovers and hear like the players talking about turnovers without that like being fixed somehow. So yeah, loads for the Clippers to improve on, even beyond like this stretch of games that we're gonna talk about. But that Jazz one was I don't know if particularly bad. Like maybe we'll come to talk about how bad I thought the Warriors one was, but a really negative way or pessimistic way, I guess, to start the season for Clippers fans.
Yeah, and I think we can put that game in the back of our mind now. Like I think like a lot of people were saying after the game, like it's the first game. It's in Salt Lake City, altitude, playing a young team. Like there are a multitude of factors that could excuse the Clippers from this performance. I don't think it's an excusable performance in a season opener, regardless of where you're playing. I think the Clippers should have come better prepared. I think that's on Ty Lue as well, but. Um, Fortunately enough, they obviously did get the opportunity to rebound back at home at Intuit Dome. They opened the season at home with a win against the Phoenix Suns, a 129-102 win. I think they're really showing the offensive potential this season. Obviously, with the caveat that this isn't the Phoenix Suns of last year. They no longer have Kevin Durant. They obviously do still have Devin Booker, who I thought again is just continues to play incredibly well. I don't think he had like a particularly good performance this game, but I think that was more testament to the Clippers defense really locking in. And I think they've in particular locked in since that Jazz game. And I think that's probably the way, and I think Tyler's even mentioned this in some of his pressers, is that they've tried to like really dial in on the defensive end. But in this game, they I think on both ends of the basketball were fantastic, and obviously ultimately got the win at home, which I think was really important to do, because I know they didn't open the season at Intuit Dome with a win last year against the Suns, so being able to do that this time was really important, and obviously just great games across the board. In particular, I've been really impressed with Derek Jones Jr. Actually, I think he's been the one who's been the most consistent across the 4 games. I think he was probably the one out of the Utah game actually that I was most impressed with, just being consistent, just not looking after the ball when he had to, but also just being like a scoring threat, but also being a menace on the defensive end. Like in this game in particular, he only played 23 minutes, but getting 17 points, and nailing 5 threes is just you can't really ask for more from like the starting power forward in this team, and I think he really delivered in this game in particular. But there was also obviously big nights for Kawhi and James, who obviously bounced back from not great games in Salt Lake City, and that was great to see as well. So, what were your thoughts from the Suns game, Josh? Because obviously it was great to get that rebound win and obviously open the season at home with a dub.
Yeah, you keep like doing I don't know if it's like accidental phrasing of like the thing that I'm thinking, or whether we just like got a really good telepathy here, James. But you say the word rebound, and like it's really easy for like even a box score watcher really to see the things that the Clippers improved at from game one of the Utah Jazz game, I should say, to game two against the Phoenix Suns. Like the Clippers went from 23 defensive rebounds against the Jazz and 38 overall to 35 defensive rebounds in the Phoenix Suns game and 45 overall. They stole the ball 12 times compared to 8 against the Jazz. Like they just came out with so much more energy, as you say, and you're right to point out that Derek Jones Jr. was a big part of that. Like shout out to Chris Dunn as well, who like it's always going to be tough to sort of define Chris Dunn's role in this team, I think, because there are going to be times, particularly in games that matter, where his offense is going to mean that he's like played off the floor because the Clippers need better shot creators and people who can nail down threes on a more regular basis and stuff. It's good, therefore, that Derek Jones Jr. showed that he can have one of these games where he does just kind of sit in the corner and hit all of his threes on any given night. But like him and Chris Dunn for so much of last season, like really brought that energy on defense and especially at Intuit Dome. Like I remember me and you doing the podcast before the start of last season and saying like those two are two guys who like should bring the energy on defense, and Derek Jones Jr. is like highlight reel in terms of dunks, should help like really like pump that energy into it dome. And like again, this is another game where you saw that from both of those guys really. Like I mentioned, the 12 steals, three of them came from Chris Dunn, three from Chris Paul, I should say as well. Like Derek Jones filled the stat sheet up that night really, as well as his 17 points, plus 12 on the plus and minus, which I know a lot of people don't necessarily go for the sort of plus and minus thing because it can be a bit of a skewed stat sometimes. But yeah, I just thought like this was one of those games where players like that really show their value. Like you always want the stars to be the stars. I know it sounds like a simplistic thing to say, but it's never really guaranteed with James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, especially, in more recent seasons in crunch time for Kawhi Leonard, whether he's, the star that can't be available on the floor or whether he's the star that still looks like he's sort of going through something, so he's more passive. And then with James, James is like religiously the star that is a playoff dropper, isn't he? So if your role players can beat your role players on any given night, but more often than not, which I do believe that Derrick Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn were last season, then you're always going to be in a better position to win games. And I guess coming into the season, I didn't really have any doubts about the role players really. Like I expected them to pick up where they left off. It's probably been like a mixed start in that sense, but again, we've discussed the reasons why we think the Clippers are pretty mixed or slow starters in general. It's
Yeah.
always going to be the stars who you look to make sure they're bouncing back, and James definitely did in this game in particular. Like even if you just look at the box score, James did. Kawhi still probably shaking a little bit of something off, like he's not used to starting seasons, as crazy as that sounds, like not used to playing in preseason and things. So maybe
Yeah.
he's just going to feel his way into things a little bit more slowly, and we'll obviously go on to talk about his sort of performance in the Portland game, where I think he does step it up a little bit more. But yeah, like really pleased with what the energy guys brought in that Phoenix game, because I think it was the energy that was the biggest difference from game one against Utah.
Yeah, I'm glad you noted Chris Dunn because I think the guard play in this game was so much better.
Yeah.
Chris Dunn included massively, and I think he's also been like you said, in line with Derek Jones Jr. as like one of the consistent performers. But I think that's because he always locks in defensively, so it always gives the team more opportunities. Going forward as well. Although I think Chris Dunn probably less so than Derek Jones Jr. is not obviously as gifted offensively. He did have a great offensive game with 14 points. I also thought it was a decent game for Chris Paul as well,
Yeah.
and allowing probably James and others to get in more rhythm. Although he didn't get any points in this game. I think just assisting and being able to look after the ball. He had 8 assists, even had 3 steals as well. And yeah, I thought he had a good impact on this game. I think this again will be a theme going forward, and like how you manage the minutes between those guards, because I think both Chris's probably do things quite similar. I guess Chris Paul is probably more of like a ball handler than Chris Dunn, but ultimately, I think if you can get the output from Chris Paul through Chris Dunn, then maybe he should see the minutes going forward. We can touch on that at a later point. I did also want to touch on Bradley Beal because I've also realised this is the last game he's played for us. He has been out with an injury for the last 2 games, so this is his most recent performance. This is the most minutes he played as well. I think he played less than 10 minutes against the Jazz, a very small amount of time. He played 20 against the Suns. Only the 6 points, and I think again it's just him sort of finding his feet. It's not ideal that he's not hit the floor since then, and I think obviously a really really important piece of context is that this is a Clippers team without Norman Powell, who's a regular season monster. I think as the Miami Heat have experienced over a few of their games so far, and what unfortunately the Clippers might experience in a couple of games time. is that obviously we're not getting that kind of output from a secondary ball handler at the moment, and the fact that Bradley Beal so far has not really contributed to the wins that we've had, and obviously has been injured. So I think that's really important context. I guess, in a way we have replaced him through, the additions of other players such as John Collins and Chris Paul. But I think part of the reasons, and we'll get on to like the Warriors game, but part of the reason why we are seeing sort of very inconsistent performances is because, yeah, that maybe those additions are not adding up to be the sum of Norman Powell so far. And obviously last season coined the term sort of addition by subtraction, but this so far with a small sample size is seeming like subtraction by subtraction. So we'll see how that progresses. But yeah, I was pleased with his performance. I think it was more of an expectation to win, just given where the Suns are currently. That they've obviously had significant change, and obviously playing at home as well was just. Yeah, even more a reason to go out and get this win. Happy to move on to the Blazers game. Does you have any closing thoughts on the Suns there, Josh?
Just like Bogdan Bogdanovic, who stepped into the starting lineup, didn't really bring the energy that we needed in Bradley Beal's absence either. So I guess like kind of worrying signs from the two guard spot at the moment for the Clippers.
Yeah,
You've mentioned good guard play from the point guards really in Chris Paul, Chris Dunn. I know Chris Dunn obviously does some too at times, or there'll be some times where I imagine because Ty Lue's a psychopath with his all guard lineups, there'll be some Chris Paul at the one and some James at the two. But yeah, for the most part, it's been the point guards who've been good and the shooting guards who've let us down a little bit. Really, if I'm someone like Cam Christie, I'm maybe having a little like side eye at Ty Lue over on the bench, being like, "Do you fancy having a little look at me, coach? Because this clearly isn't working too well at the moment."
no, that should be a talking point going forward, and I want to cover that at some point because, I don't think the Clippers can afford to lose this many games sort of early on. So I want to touch on that again at some point. But obviously, first, I want to talk about the third game, so the second game at home against the Portland Trailblazers, where, as I think you alluded to, Kawhi obviously had probably his best performance so far this season. Really came into his own and looked like the Kawhi from old. Like took filled up the box score really with 21 field goal attempts in this game, 4 threes made, even 10 rebounds, which was obviously great. It just highlighted how active he was in this game. And just looked fantastic, really. And like I said, like the Kawhi of old, which is great for us to see so early on in the season. It's probably that first highlight into the old Kawhi Leonard and maybe the benefits of part of that preseason. And then I think across the board, even yeah, guys like Vijay Zubac, I think we probably haven't spoke much about him, but I think some quietly are expecting him to make a small jump this year. I don't think we'd seen that in the first two games or even against the Warriors last night, but this is probably the first game that looked like the Vijay Zubac of last season. He scored 21 points, and then James Harden as well, but I think it was more like the facilitator of this game. Obviously, he probably realised that, Kawhi was hot and continuing to feed in the ball, also working in that pick and roll with Zoo as well. He had 13 assists, which was fantastic too. So it was a great performance. I know a lot of people would probably like look down upon the Portland Trailblazers, and I know they've got like a lot of off-court stuff going on as well with Chauncey Billups. Although I'm not the biggest fan of him from like a coaching perspective. I actually think they've got like a lot of underrated talent. Like could be like low key kind of a decent like sleeper team this year just because of the talent that they've got in their team. And I think you might see that, and they may surprise a few teams this year. So I kind of saw this as like a potential banana skin, like it probably more so than the Jazz game. I probably underrated the Jazz a bit too much, but I think I don't. Again, I don't know if it's my memory or anything, but I don't know if they managed to beat the Lakers last night, or I can't remember it in particular. But I think they will beat a few teams last year. Is my point really, and they had a few guys on double digits like Denny Avdia. Shaden Sharp, Drew Holiday, who they've got now, Jeremy Grant. So these are all players, and I'm also a big fan of Donovan Clingan as well, who I think could be a really good talent going forward. So yeah, and they've still got Scoot Henderson out. Obviously, Dame Lillard is not coming back anytime this year. They didn't play in this game, but yeah, I thought the Clippers managed this pretty well. I guess what were your thoughts on the game, Josh?
Yeah, you should have committed to that. By the way, the Blazers did beat the Lakers last night, so you smashed it
Good,
on the ball knowledge
good.
there. Ball Noah, James Warner, they're calling him. Yeah, like Zoo's the sort of person that I want to focus on in particular in this one because like Kawhi has a great game. You know that like on some nights you are going to get that sort of production from Kawhi. Like there's some games where it just feels like he can't miss, and this was kind of one of them. I guess he's 52% from the field, but 67% from three, hitting 4 of 6. So 10 rebounds, all defensive, 4 assists, 2 steals, as you said, like really filling up the box score. But the most, I guess, interesting performance and like for particularly through that first 3 games was Ivica Zubac because I thought Zubac came out and started the season really slowly and for the most part pretty poorly by his standards, to be honest. Like he has 19 points against the Jazz, but I think it's a pretty uninspiring 19 points. I think he's like completely outplayed by Walker Kessler and even Yusuf Nurkic when he was having his minutes on the floor as well. Like he made those 2 guys, and I think Walker Kessler is obviously massively talented. I think Nurkic's talent has sort of fallen off a bit of a cliff in the NBA the past few years, but it felt like those 2 guys were able to play Zoo quite easily. I thought he was uh, really particularly poor against the Phoenix Suns, against like a team that look like they're going to be active on defense this year. Like maybe that's the Phoenix Suns identity with guys like Grayson Allen and Dylan Brooks, and I was even pretty impressed by what Ryan Dunn was able to do on defense. But like the centers, you look at like who the Suns have got, and it's Mark Williams and Oso Ighodaro, and like they are not 2 guys who should be all but playing Ivica Zubac off the floor. And sorry, it's Nick Richards, isn't it? Not Mark Williams.
Yeah, yeah,
Nick Richards and oh no, it's Mark Williams there as well. But Nick Richards and Mark Williams and Oso Ighodaro. So like they're the 3 guys who the Suns are throwing at Ivica Zubac, and he commits 3 turnovers in this game, finishes with just 8 points. So like really disappointing, and like not aggressive enough, not good enough at passing out of pressure and like all these kinds of things. Which like if you're going to ascend to the next level, which we all want Zubac to do, then like you have to be more aggressive and you have to learn how to pass out the post and you have to be better when the ball's getting fired into you because like guys like James and Kawhi are going to demand so much attention that sometimes the ball is just going to come at you quickly and you have to be prepared for that moment. And that is, I think, the next level of Zoo's progression. So not wholly like I didn't watch that Portland game and think like, oh, that's the step up we need to see from Zoo because like I take your point about Donovan Clingan. I wasn't overly impressed by him against us. Like in the sense that like he finishes with quite a nice stat line. Yes, like he's almost on a double double. It's just 9 points, but 10 rebounds, 3 assists. Those
yeah.
things are good. I think Donovan Clingan is one of those like really unaggressive centers at the moment where like the next level of his progression will be that he has to be more aggressive and he can't settle and he can't just like keep leaning on things like just the passing and things like that and like settling for 3 point shots, and he didn't shoot well from three that night either. Like his next stage progression will be like no, be a bully in the post and stuff, but like Zoo is already that post bully. So like to play against someone like Donovan Clingan is like fried chicken to Ivica
I
Zubac.
know.
Like
Yeah,
he should go in and absolutely feast there. So yeah, it wasn't a game where I was like, oh, like Ivica Zubac has been like majorly impressive considering how disappointed really I was from those first 2 games, that Phoenix game in particular. More disappointed on what he didn't do on the defensive end in the Utah game. He was okay on the offensive end. Disappointed on both ends really in the Phoenix game, and then I guess like kind of impressed again on the offensive end against Portland, but still like more to do for Zoo, I think, to make the jump that like he can make as well. Like I think the reason we're all so high on Zoo is because we all see the potential there. Like you hear the way guys talk about him. Like I saw an interview with Brook Lopez that was on. I think it was on NBC actually the other day, and he was saying like, "Oh, I knew from when he was at the Lakers, like he had this talent in him." So I think sometimes with Zoo, it's that like mental block to get over of being like, "No, I am this good and like I can dominate." And like, look at what I was able to do last season with like way more of the ball. Like my production was incredible. So like Zoo really honing in on that now. Looking at that Portland game and hopefully using that as like more of a blueprint for how he should play against anybody. Like even if it's someone who's more passive and a bit more wiry like Donovan Clingan, like take it to them, like go through this person's chest. You have it in you. You are a 7 footer, which I think sometimes who doesn't act like he's a 7 footer, or like in the body, he very much does in the hands sometimes. But yeah, like he was just the one I wanted to focus on from that game. I'm not sure on your thoughts.
Yeah, I think with Zoo in particular, and again, I think it's still a bit too early to say completely like why there's been like obviously a slight slow start on his side to start the season. But I don't know. He was such a he obviously had his sort of career season last year, and he was sort of in those conversations for even Defensive Player of the Year, right? Even like small shouts for like All Star votes and these kind of things that he'd never been in before. I don't know if teams have like leaned into that more, and obviously he was a big facilitator for the Clippers in the postseason. Like they would go to him often against Jokic. Like he obviously just tends to play really well against Nikola Jokic, but I don't know if teams doing their due diligence on the Clippers this year have sort of circled that a bit more and paid a bit more attention to him. And yeah, obviously, if he is to take that next step, then he's going to have to start figuring this out. If teams are throwing different sort of defensive schemes to try and deal with him, because and I think that's probably a big compliment to him actually, and the fact that teams are recognizing that he is a great player and sort of commending him for his performances last season by showing him a bit more attention than maybe like teams had previously. So I would not be surprised at that. Given obviously some of the games in particular he's been a bit slow at, like I can definitely see the Jazz doing that, and obviously the Warriors last night, and how smart they are with their guys. I can definitely see that as well. But no, yeah, I think overall it was just a great win, and like I said, it could have been a potential slip game, but fortunately for us, we avoided it, and the Clippers, the Lakers didn't. So thank you for confirming that, because I knew that they had dropped that
Gotta
game.
back yourself.
Yeah, you've got to back yourself, especially when it comes to talking down the Lakers. But I'm I mean, I don't want to, but I think we're going to have to speak about this Warriors game, because obviously I didn't follow this one live. I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because it was a very late one. So obviously shout out to anyone listening to this from the UK or
Richard, let's just say Richard.
Richard, any of the usual cast who I wake up to see messages from in our group chat at like 4, 5, 6 a.m. in the morning. So shout out to you guys, because I don't know how you managed to get through this one, but this was a really tough watch back early this morning, and I almost like double checked my phone to make sure that the score was right, because unfortunately I saw the score before I watched the game, and I don't like to do that. Clippers only scored 79 points in this loss. They lost 79-98 to the Warriors in San Francisco. Yeah, I mean, at halftime, things looked fine for the Clippers. I think there were some signs yeah, there was some signs along the way, sort of in that first half. I think broadly that they played well. Like they were up at the half, which is I think important to note in this one. But ultimately, only scored 30 points in the second half, which is inexcusable, and just went absolutely cold. And I think it was like the Jazz game, but just even worse. And I think the Warriors probably can do that to you in terms of the way that they're set up, like the guys that they have in their team, like Jimmy Butler, Steph in particular, who can obviously just catch fire at any point. And I just think Clippers just couldn't shoot the ball. And I think a lot of people will say like these nights can happen in the NBA, etc. But I don't know. It just seems to me that these kind of games happen to the Clippers a bit too much, and I think there are some things you can look into. Like I don't think it's like as simple as just saying, "Oh, they just the ball just didn't go in today," but that it'll go in the next game. Like I think there are some things that Ty needs to take out of this game. I think in particular, like poor performances from guys like Bogey and even Chris Paul to an extent. Like I thought Chris Dunn looked great, and I think just trying to like keep guys in to just give you that opportunity is something that we need to look to do going forward. Obviously, Chris didn't add like a lot to the offensive side, but I think just having him to sort of slow things down is going to be really important. And I just think the Clippers didn't really get a great game from some of their vets. I think in particular, obviously Chris Paul, Brook Lopez. I mean, probably most of the new guys, John Collins as well. only with 5 points. And I think, like I said at the start of the episode, when you think about the fact that the Clippers have lost from last year, one of the best regular season players in terms of Norman Powell, and then you're bringing in Bogdan Bogdanovic into his role. Obviously, Bradley Beal didn't play in this game, and then sort of the additions on the outside are Chris Paul, Brook Lopez, and John Collins. You know, if you add up their points, you're getting 10, and that's not even half of what maybe a Norman Powell would get. You know, he was averaging over 20 last year, so I think it's just as simple as that. And I don't think you can really comment on the ball not going in. I think when you look at the guys who are taking the shots, it's mainly James and Kawhi, and I'm not seeing a whole lot in the box score from anyone else. And I think obviously we commented like Derek Jones Jr. had a great start. Obviously, this wasn't a great offensive game for him, but I think just the overall rhythm just wasn't there. Like they just instantly got cold, and this game again was one of those that ran away from them, but I think in more dramatic fashion. I think in the Jazz, like it was there early, like you knew it was going to be a bad game, but at least in this case, like the team had performed up to half time, like they were leading, but to score only 30 points in the half of basketball, I think it's just inexcusable. And there's a lot more going on there than just like a cold shooting night, in my opinion. But I'm keen to know what you think, Josh, because this was a bit of a surprise to wake up to this morning.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna segue off one of your points again because like we wasted a cold Steph Curry night. Like that's like one of the things like it should be like rule number one of when you play the Golden State Warriors is don't
Yeah,
ever waste a cold Steph Curry night. Like Steph went 2 for 8 in this game. He was 7 of 15 from the field overall. So like obviously able to get his inside, which again begs questions of your defense if you're letting Steph Curry drive to the paint. Like you might say, oh, we're keeping him off the 3 point line, but like yeah, I mean, maybe you need to find different ways then of your scheme inside working. Like for me, like it's more than a cold shoot tonight because the Clippers didn't shoot enough in that second half in particular. The Clippers, like they seem like a team who are way too easily discouraged, and this was a thing last season as well. By the way, as good as they were for large stretch of last season, they're a team who's way easily discouraged to just like stop shooting. Like Kawhi and James didn't shoot a single three in that second half, which is like absolutely inexcusable. They two best players. Like they shouldn't. There should never be a world where James
but
Harden is taking 3 shots, missing all 3 of them, getting 0 points, not shooting a single three. As I say, Kawhi goes 3 of 7 from the field, which is 43%, but like no threes again. Like there's not a world in which any of these guys should not be taking threes. Like that is like completely and utterly inexcusable. So like it just felt like the Clippers came out with a weird energy in that second half of this game. I didn't think the Warriors had to play particularly well to win. Like their second half stats are pretty like normal. They obviously finish on 98 points. I didn't think the Clippers were like defending them like wolves to get to that 98 points. Like I think the Warriors were just looked like a pretty average NBA team. The Clippers second half looked like a terrible NBA team, really. One that didn't want to shoot, one that was too passive in possession. There's 8 turnovers. Like you can't even say like that's maybe not the greatest total, but the Warriors turned the ball over 6 times as well. So like it comes back to that thing. Like the Warriors weren't particularly inspiring this. The rebound battle in the second half was exactly the same. Literally, the thing that you look to is the Clippers shooting, like not moving the ball enough, not shooting the ball enough. Just a really like wasteful second half after like going down again in the first half in a way that was like not great really, like going down it was 8 points in the first quarter I think, but pulling that
yeah,
back with a better second quarter performance, particularly on the defensive end, like holding the Warriors to just 13 points in that second quarter, but then just absolutely kicking up complete and utter stink in that third quarter in particular. But then obviously the fourth quarter we end up pulling the starters at a certain point. So yeah, like not good enough at all from the Clippers. Probably why I've come into this pod today a little bit more like I don't want to say down on them because I feel like I'm almost making like excuses for why it can still be okay because we've had some okay seasons in the past when we have started badly. But like I watched that game before and was like, there's just nothing inspiring to take from that second half in particular. Like when you have guys just not shooting. Um, yeah, like just like a really, really bad game from the Clippers, one that I would like to forget very quickly. I know that the next game is on Friday because you've told me now, James. I think I was manifesting it being tomorrow night, to be honest. 'Cause I was like, I need to get this out of my system like as quick as
Yeah,
possible. This Warriors one, but we'll have to wait an extra night for the NBA Cup to start and for us to focus our interest on something different because. Yeah, unfortunately, we're gonna have another night to stew on this Golden State Warriors one, which was bad, very bad.
yeah. I think if it was up to the Clippers, they would want to play tomorrow night just to get this game out of their
Tonight
minds
they
because
should be willing for. Can we
tonight,
play again
yeah,
tonight?
like
Can we
an
shoot the ball away more, please?
early tip, like yeah, this is a Warriors team that are coming off a back to back, and obviously, like I've said, the Clippers defense since that Jazz game has been like tightened up. And I think, like you mentioned in that second quarter, like it really tightened up and it allowed them to get the lead at the half. And obviously, they only actually let 109 points on the Warriors, which I think is broadly acceptable. But they just couldn't put the ball in the basket, and like I said, just weren't. I don't know, weren't creating enough. I think maybe more so like they only had 10 assists in the whole game, which is usually that is some nights what James will record on his own. And I think that's in itself like equally as inexcusable. I think there was some like stat that I saw earlier around like scores that were less than 80 for a team that also had like less than 10 assists in a game, and like I don't think there was any from like the past 4 seasons. So like it is in a way like in recent seasons like a historically bad performance for a whole team to be able to do that, and just shows that they're not moving the ball well enough, not taking shots, not hungry to get the ball in the basket. And I think that was probably the highlight of it really. And I saw Kawhi's sort of post media sort of interview with Lord Murray, and they were sort of discussing the pace in which they're playing. And I think it's definitely been noted like just how slow it's been. And like I think the Warriors obviously recently have gone through a bit of like a restructuring, and they've got a lot of younger guys in their team, and I think that did a lot for them last night and like the second night to back to back to like maintain that energy. Like yeah, obviously like Kaminga and probably even Quinton Post, who I think had a great game as well. I think probably just brought that energy more so than obviously this Clippers team, which has been suggested even by Ty Lue that both Kawhi and James at halftime were like, I'm feeling tired, which is alarming. I think obviously I know we're only 4 games in, but yeah, I don't know if that's just the fact that they've had more load in the training camp, in the off season, in the preseason, just trying to get ready for the season, and maybe they're just not ready. They're just not there yet. So I think actually playing on Friday is good for them because they need time to recover. Like obviously, like James played 20 minutes in that first half, and he didn't really get a lot of floor time in the second because he was just genuinely tired. So I don't know if that's more of an age thing, it's a preparation thing, but again, I want to revisit this at the 10 game mark. I think we need more games. We need to see this team play more. But I think the early indications is that the team could use a little bit of youthfulness. Like I'm looking through the guys that have been starting games. I'm probably just looking on face value, like it's probably only Derek Jones Jr. and John Collins who are the young sort of guys who are actually getting meaningful minutes, and they're in their late 20s. So yeah, I think like you mentioned earlier in the pod, like guys like Cam Christie, even like Kobe Brown, Yannick Conan Niederhauser, these are players who I think maybe should be being looked at if more of these performances are happening. Like players are reporting that even that they're getting tired. I don't know if there's more players than just James and Kawhi, but I think we need some youth. We need some more athleticism, which I think we hoped we'd get with John Collins, but I don't think he's that kind of creator who's really going to start sparking things. So yeah, I think a lot for the Clippers to think about, and unfortunately a lot for us to think about for the next game. But yeah, I think going into tonight, and like, I think just going back to that point I made around assists, like the Clippers were like seventh for assists in the NBA, and now they're 20th. Like that's how bad last night was. Like they went from being a good team with the ball, like a good team creating lots of opportunities, to now like after that game has absolutely tanked them. I know we can't look too deeply into stats, but that's what last night did for them. Like they took them from 7th to 20th in terms of a team that create opportunities. Like it was just that bad. So I don't really have much more to say about it, and I just hope that we don't get another one of these in the next 10 games, because I'd much prefer to talk about how the Clippers are starting to improve, and obviously they'll have an opportunity to do that in their first NBA Cup game on Friday. But yeah, any final thoughts on this one, Josh? Are you ready to turn a page on it?
Like, I just wanted to completely agree on your point about the sort of pace. I know it was like Kawhi's point originally, or Law's point at least, but like 29th in pace in the league when you're like looking at the advanced stats of it, which is like nowhere near good enough. The only team that's slower than that is the Houston Rockets, which you'd say like are probably a more deliberate offense at the moment because they don't have a point guard, and it's obviously Kevin Durant and things like that. And like, the Rockets are 3-1 and probably extend to 4-1 when they play again tonight, I think it is. So I'd say the Rockets have more of an excuse to be that slow. The Clippers like just can't be that slow. They have to find a way to quicken that play up. I think back to that. I don't know if it was a couple of off seasons ago when they had like, I know they had the funny shirts in the off season this season too, but the get to the paint or die trying thing. The Clippers are 29th in field goal attempts this season. Um, they're a pretty good offensive rebounding team. Like their average, the 15th in the league in offensive rebounding. So like they really need to be like more aggressive in driving to the paint. They're again 29th in free throw attempts. Like the Clippers just don't drive to the paint at all. They don't make a point of doing that. So then there's no assists that are coming from like kickouts and swinging the ball and things like that. Clippers just don't play with that kind of like aggression or pace. And it's a worry, really. Like I would argue that is a thing that goes like hand in hand with age. It feels like age is always the easiest thing to fall back on. And like I was getting almost a bit wound up with like that narrative going into the season, but there's the NBAage.com, which is a perfectly named website, has like the average age weighted by minutes played per team, and the Clippers are the oldest team in the NBA by 2.2 years. The Sacramento Kings coming in after that, and the Golden State Warriors coming in after that, and then everybody else is below 30. The Clippers are 33 at the top of that list. So it shows you that like that average age thing that people were talking about coming into the season is also transpiring in the minutes and in the usage and things like that. They're top of that for usage as well by some distance. So yeah, like too slow, too old, not aggressive enough. I want to see way more of that aggression, way more of the ball swinging around, way more of them getting to the paint or die trying, and winning free throws, because I think we often feel like we're a bit of a hard luck story, the Clippers, in terms of like the whistle that we get. But like I kind of don't want to hear the hard luck story. Like I want to see people not literally dying, but getting to the
Yeah,
paint or die trying in that spirit. Like try and die, but like get into the basket. Like if someone's going to come and take you out, let them come and take you out. Like be more aggressive that you're going to take that contact. So hopefully loads more of that to come. The Pelicans being the next opponent is either like, I don't know. It feels like it could be the death knell of this team, where like you've got the 0-4 Pelicans, 0-4, 0-3 or something like that. Come into Intuit. I think it's Intuit, isn't it? So, yeah, it is Intuit. So, like you've got them coming in now, often 0-3 start, like a bit of a wounded animal. Loads of the same guys that have absolutely cooked the Clippers before. It's got like banana skin written all over it for me. Like it's definitely a game that I am worried about again. Maybe just because it's the Pelicans as opposed to like it being any sort of them actually being a good team or anything, because they've clearly not put it together so far this season. But neither really have the Clippers in a way that's made me like sit up and take notice. So yeah, I don't know how you're feeling about that game, James. I'm worried.
yeah, I never knew NBAage.com existed, and I have a feeling maybe it's because of the Clippers this year. I don't know.
Quite
I feel like
possibly.
maybe they've had an uptick in traffic because of just how old this Clippers team is, and there is more interest in it. I will probably say that, yeah, like just ready to turn a page on that game. So yeah, I was watching a clip earlier just around like how many times players are going to the line now, and like it's at like historic levels in terms of that there's multiple players on like the Giannis level of the amount of times they're going to the line. Like I think it was like it could have been like 10 players. Again, I can't remember the stat off the top of my head, but teams are going to the line more. I just had a quick look. Clippers are joint or pretty much joint bottom with the Sacramento Kings for the amount of times they go into the line, only 19.5 attempts per game. When you look at the top, Orlando Magic, 35.8. Even the Lakers, who, obviously they've got Luka, which I think is probably the driving force behind that, but 33 attempts per game. So, that's if you're a statistician and you're looking at that, that's like 10 less attempts per game, potentially, 7 less points per game. Like these are the kind of margins that the Clippers need to start picking up. And I think you'd be probably shocked to see like a team that low have James Harden on the team. Like I think he was like one of the guys that would always get to the free throw line, and maybe he is the one who's getting them, but it's just nobody else on the team is like contributing to that at all, and like I say, not putting their body on the line, and it's just not acceptable in these first 4 games. I think even building off that, like Clippers having the second lowest, or sorry, the absolute lowest points per game out of any team so far. Again, having James Harden in that team should shock people because he's like previously been like an offensive powerhouse. Like I don't know if that's just where we are now with like the careers of James Harden and Kawhi, but you would expect that from other teams, even like the Pelicans, right? They're scoring more points per game through the first 4 than the Clippers, and I definitely think that's a bananas king game. By like no measure other than the fact that historically that's just been a horrific game for the Clippers, and I feel like it's just no matter who they have on their team, they will just find a way to just torment us in any way possible. And I pulled up their roster just now, and obviously Zion is like the guy like you're going to think of straight away, but I don't think he's going to do it on his own. I'm thinking like like I wouldn't say random, but I can see like Jordan Poole like just having a ridiculous scoring night. Like I can just see it. I can see it now. So
Yeah.
that's going to be an interesting one. And the NBA Cup, again, it's like a fairly new concept, but I would quite like to see the Clippers do well in it, and even have like that game in Vegas could be quite fun. But the way they're playing now, they don't have a chance because they could easily drop that game against the Pelicans, and then you're basically out from there because the Pelicans probably the easiest team they're going to play in that run. So yeah, it's I think we're all pretty down at the moment, but I'm hoping like that's the game that they get to turn it around. In the NBA Cup, it'd be the first time they have like the NBA Cup court into a dome, which is I think I don't know if you've seen it, it's quite like a interesting design. And then after that, they've got the return of Norman Powell with the Miami Heat, so that will be interesting, and whether we get the revenge game. I think if there's any player who's ever left the Clippers, like he's the guy to get the revenge game, like the way like he was talking about Paul George last year, and now like he's the guy that's been subtracted. Like I could definitely see a 30-point banker with this game. And then to make things even easier for the Clippers, they are also going to be facing the champions. So it's going to be the return of SGA, and that's going to be an interesting game. Just contextually, I think just where both franchises are since obviously the trades that sort of started things for both teams, with the Thunder coming in with obviously their first title, with guys like SGA obviously having his first ring. Isaiah Hartenstein has obviously since left the Clippers after they decided that they wanted to get John Wall instead, to then also becoming a worthy champion. So that game's gonna be fun. They're off to a 5-0 start as well. So I don't know how I feel about these first few games. I'm thinking maybe a 2-1 split over those 3. Like I just don't see a win at this stage. Like the Clippers roster, like that Thunder game looks maybe a step too far at this stage. I know they've obviously tried to build the roster to like eventually beat like a team like the Thunder, but the way they're playing right now, I just can't see it at all. And that's a team that gets to the line. Like SGA is going to get to the line. He's going to have the whistle that night, especially also them being at home. And obviously just that added flair, like I was saying, with like the history between the two teams over the last few years. Like I feel like the fans are going to be right up for it, like sort of like a haha, like you thought you were going to be the guys that were going to be winning, but actually it ended up being us, right? So I'm not looking forward to that one. I'm not looking forward to Friday either, but the Heat game could be fun. It'd be good to see Norman Powell again, and I think the Heat also, I don't think have got off to like the best start. So like, let's see, and that should maybe be the easier one. But although I'm looking now, I'm absolutely wrong on that point. They're 3-1, so it's not going to be an easy 3 games. It's the short story here. For some reason, I thought the Heat were doing doing worse than that. But I think Norman Powell has been pretty good through those games. So yeah, by the time we speak again, it'd be interesting how we get on. But I want to know your thoughts on these games, Josh.
I think I do agree with you, even though the Heat start is sort of, it looks, I guess, better on paper than it is in actuality. Like they played the Hornets, the Grizzlies, the Knicks, who've been a little bit out of sorts, but still quite a good win against them. And they lost to the Magic, and the Magic have been really bad this season. So, like, the other two wins coming against the Hornets and the Grizzlies are not like majorly
No.
inspiring ones. Like the Grizzlies still look like a really weird team, even with Jarback, and things are just a bit strange in Memphis, I think. So, um, I'm gonna also predict 2-1. I'm gonna throw you a curveball though. I think we'll beat the Warriors. I think we will get spanked by the Pelicans. I've just got this really bad feeling about things. Like I was looking at the Pelicans roster and like who's like started the season as like the main sort of shooters and things like that. And I saw what stood out was Trey Murphy is currently shooting 22% from three. So I was like, oh, it feels like he always shoots really well against the Clippers, and he does. It's like looking at his game log against the Clippers is genuinely like it's like a horror film. Like, so since he started playing big minutes against the Clippers, his first game he was 3 of 9. His second game he was 10 of 12, 83% from three. This is 2 of 5 the next game, 1 of 6. He had a little off game where he only played 17 minutes. I think he got injured in that game, which is why he only played 17 and didn't shoot the ball particularly well. 3 of 8, so 38% if you round it up. 4 of 9, 4 of 7, 3 of 7. So I'm expecting a big Trey Murphy game. I'm expecting that the Pelicans will beat the Clippers and we'll be all be in meltdown on social media. The Clippers will win an uninspiring one against the Miami Heat because I think they're a way better basketball team than the Miami Heat are. And then I'm going to do a bold prediction and say that me and you are sat here next Wednesday, James, smug as anything because the night before the Clippers will have just edged out a tight one against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And that will be the moment that the Clippers season goes on a little bit of a run after a shaky start. I'm calling it. I'm just calling it.
I'm taking that, and I'll back you with it. I would love to sit here next week and have the Clippers beat the Thunder in sort of the return to that rivalry. That'd be brilliant, and that could be the one that ignites the team. Like that's the kind of win. I think in previous seasons, Clippers have made like a few statement wins, like during the time that they've started these kind of streaks. And hey, no better team to do it against than the Oklahoma City Thunder, with obviously like the history between the franchises. So I'll absolutely take that. You've made me panic even more about Friday with that stat about
Sorry.
Trey Murphy. No, and I'm not like a gambling person. I don't really advocate for it either, but I might like have to hedge my emotions on that game and just like bet on like a ridiculous amount of threes for him. He's probably also like he knows like how badly he's been shooting the ball through like the first few games of the season. He's probably looking at the Clippers. He knows this. He probably knows this as well. He's probably got someone in his ear, like he's one of his coaches or personal trainers saying, "Yeah, you've got the Clippers coming up. Like it's going to get better for you. You shoot the ball well against them. The rim doubles in size against the Clippers. Like, yeah, I'm more afraid now than I was. I think I was speaking a bit more like hypotheticals around like Jordan Poole balling out, but now, yeah, I'm afraid of Trey Murphy, 80% from three. That brings back some bad memories. So we'll see. I'm just hoping that we get off to a good start in these next three games. I mean, like I said, back here next Wednesday, I'm going to turn to you, Josh, and ask for your thoughts on the game because hoping it's going to be one where you've correctly predicted the Clippers to edge out against the Thunder, but we'll see. I guess any closing thoughts on this episode? I think we've broadly touched everything. I know probably the only thing we like maybe haven't. I think we spoke about it a little bit, but Bogdanovic and obviously coming into the lineup recently, and Bradley Beal being out. But I'm interested to see when Bradley Beal's going to come back because I think the Clippers desperately need him. They desperately need him against the Thunder at least. And if Trey Murphy's going to go off on Friday, probably need him to be sort of dueling with him a little bit in that regard. But yeah, any final thoughts in this episode before we wrap up, and then we can obviously reconvene next Wednesday where hopefully the Clippers are 5-2 and things are looking a bit brighter.
Yeah, I think the Bogdanovic thing needs like some sort of change in the way it works, I guess, like start in the last 2 games at the two guard, like basically plays himself out of the Warriors game, only plays 9 minutes in the end. So maybe there's already a little bit of a shift in terms of the way that looks. I think like Ty has got to change from there really. Like I know Ty has been a pretty stubborn customer in the past, and that's left a lot of people with sort of almost a PTSD around how stubborn Ty can be. But yeah, like he's got to find a way to change that because I don't think Bogdan is like good enough at the moment to be starting. And like maybe not good enough's not the right word, but in like a good enough moment
Yeah.
to be starting. He's clearly still feeling some effects of that injury he had over the off season. So I hope the Clippers can figure out some sort of different lineup iteration there, maybe that just means you tweak things around a little bit. I know he doesn't like to necessarily do have Chris Dunn and Derek Jones Jr. on the court at the same time, but maybe there's a formula in the Derek Jones Jr. game you get in Phoenix where you can have him sort of sat in the corner shooting the lights out. You have Chris Dunn playing more sort of on ball, but trying to move the ball with more tempo, as we were talking about before. Like maybe there is some way around that because, yeah, I think Bogdan in the starting lineup just isn't really working. So try and find a different solution to that, I guess.
Cam Christie, maybe. Who knows? We'll see. Very very unlikely, but I think someone was making a comment on X earlier around like how in preseason like Ty Lue was looking for answers, even from guys like Jordan Miller. Like I think that I don't know if we're at that point yet, but I think it's still too early. And I think knowing Ty is going to continue to roll with it, but let's see. Like, I'm interested to see the kind of adjustments he makes over the next 3 games, and then we're 3 games then close to like the 10 game sample, and then we can start to like really see like how these lineups are working because I think it's too early on. But the beauty of the NBA is that we've got 78 games more to get it right, and I'm sure at some point like things can start to click, or at least the franchise can understand like what direction this team is going in. Because I think right now we're a bit lost because these games have been up and down, and it's been probably typical Clippers to start the season. Look, I'm happy to wrap it here. I think both of us have got to go and head off and watch our own cup games later on. Obviously, before the Clippers then are in a cup game this Friday, looking for their first title. We've got some other football related games to watch, so I'm keen to end it here, Josh. But obviously, thanks for joining me. As always, I'm hoping, like I said, this time next week you can be back and celebrating a win against the Thunder. That'll be fantastic. I'll be absolutely buzzing to be speaking with you. So looking forward to that. Thanks again, Josh, and thanks everyone for listening, watching, engaging with the pod, and we'll see you all soon. Go Clips, go!